Who's the best striker in UFC history?
There's a slight difference in my head between the best striker and the greatest striker.
Yeah.
Have you achieved greatness through just striking? But if we're putting just two people in a cage and going, your style versus your style, weight class is all equal, then you're probably saying Wonderboy and MVP beat everyone.
This is going to be tough because we're not going to agree. We're kind of all over the place right here. So,
well, we're all settled on number one. Number one is done.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to talkSPORT and another episode of Talk MMA with me, Alex Ritchings, aka Bailey, and of course, I'm joined as always by Blake Harrison, Kweku Afari. Let's talk about striking in MMA, okay? And let's talk about specifically who's the best striker in UFC history. Depending on how long you've watched, we're all going to have different opinions, but I want to see if we can collectively, guys, come up with a top five. Okay, you know, together. Everyone's going to have a different top five. I'm not going to start, so Blake, let's go with you. Have you got a top five?
What are we kind of going down, just saying like at a time, like one, then two, then three, or do you just want my kind of top five off the bat?
I think we should like do our top fives off the bat, right? Let's get like the picks on the table. We can have a chat about them. You know, we've got to talk about like what makes an elite striker and things like that. We're going to have different criteria, I think. So let's see the criteria.
I can show my work later, but the list as it stands for me, I think number one's got to be obvious. I think it's got to be Anderson Silva. I don't think you can top Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva's got to be number one. Number two, I'm going Jose Aldo. Number three, okay, yeah, it's a mention. I can show my work. Number three, I'm going Izzy.
Okay.
Number four, I'm going Max Holloway.
Okay.
And number five, I'm going Yana Jacek.
Okay, so I like that pick. You want to pick stealthy.
I mean, look, I know you guys are going to probably throw in your Pereiras and your McGregors and your Wonderboys and all that kind of stuff, but I've based a lot of this on win streaks, title defenses, getting to the top echelons of the sport, and also not having a game of like, you know how like Volk or GSP would be able to wrestle as well. When Volk's fighting Yair Rodriguez, he's taking down. These are people that are pretty much purely strikers.
Okay.
So that's where I've come from with this.
Okay. Should we save reservations for afterwards? Maybe.
Because okay. We'll just go through.
We'll go around and see because there's a couple in there I don't agree with, but we'll see what you got, Quakey.
Okay. So number one, I think we will agree, Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm going Poatan. I'm just am, and I'll show my work in later. Number three is where I found it very, very difficult, but I went Izzy.
Okay.
Number four, I went Max.
Okay.
And number five, I went Wonderboy.
Okay. All right. Now, boys, I like those picks. There's some good picks in there. All right. I'm going to do my top five. Mine's going to be a little different, but I'm not going to tell you why your picks are wrong. You know, I'm going to just tell you why I disagree. It's fine, though. All right, number one, Anderson Silva, right?
Yeah.
I think we got that. I think we locked that with him.
Yeah.
Number two, I have Bas Rutten. Okay. Now, granted, the guy didn't have a lot of UFC fights, but I can show my working out afterwards when we come to debates here on this one, as we've said. Number three, I actually have Alexander Volkanovski. Okay.
Interesting.
And again, I gotta get detailed to explain these because on face value they're gonna sound good. Number four, I got Topuria, and number five, I have Alistair Overeem.
Interesting.
So we're kind of all over the place right here. So
well, we're all settled on number one. Number one is done.
Yeah,
that's no surprise. It's Anderson Silva.
Anderson walks so these others can run. If you listen to people talk about strikers in MMA and strikers in UFC, Anderson Silva is just the GOAT when it comes to that. Although I know it's an older Anderson, but Anderson did fight Izzy and Izzy won. So it's a different. It was different Anderson Silva. So
we've got to look at prime, haven't we? Otherwise, we're going to get all over the place. I think Anderson, the amount of finishes, the effectiveness of the singular strikes, it wasn't always an overwhelming amount of offense. It was just one shot, the guy's gone. Like sometimes that's all it took. So I think Anderson Silva, finishing rate, accuracy, striking acumen, can fight in every direction. We take him as number one, right, Blake? You good?
Yeah. I mean, also just title defenses. Winning, like, was it a 16-fight win streak, the best the UFC's ever seen? Plus, he went up and down divisions.
Yep.
He just went up to 205, not even for title fights, not to, chase that double champ status, just because he could. And it wasn't like a 10-pound difference. Middleweight to light heavyweight, 20-pound difference is big. And he just went up there and was smoking people up there with one punch. And it was phenomenal stuff from Anderson Silva. He has to be number one.
Now, who did you guys have as number two, just out of interest?
I went Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
No, I went Poatan.
Poatan. Okay. Now, Aldo, you didn't have on there, did you, Kweku?
No, I didn't have on there.
Okay. I like Aldo. The only reason I didn't include Aldo is because I do think he was outworked by other guys, even when he was in the top form of his career. Like McGregor, that's more of like a pinpoint breakdown. He worked out the perfect shot to finish him with. Did get beaten twice by Max Holloway. He also got beaten by Volkanovski. So for me, it's difficult because although Aldo in his prime was incredibly fast twitch, it's super powerful, devastating, so much power he couldn't even control it. But as the game evolved, I feel like, there were more nuances to other games that danced around what Aldo's core skill set was. But Blake, fight on him. Man.
You say as the game's evolved. That phrase is going to come up again when you say Bas Rutten, by the way.
Wow.
As the game's evolved. Jose Aldo, 15-fight winning streak. I'm including WEC in this. WEC was the UFC for the smaller weight classes. So you have to include WEC. It's not
Thank you for educating people.
9 defenses. UFC and WEC title defenses, 9 defenses. Was he about 9 years unbeaten or something like that? Like, I might need some clarification on this as well, but I'm pretty sure that if you include the WEC, he's the youngest ever champ, not John Jones.
Oh, you might be right about
Jose
that.
Aldo is the youngest ever champ in the kind of Zuffa or whatever time. So, but these things and the fact that he did it all through striking, I think really means Jose Aldo. Yes, it got to a point where there was the McGregor thing and then Max Holloway, but that happens to pretty much everyone not named Khabib or GSP. You get to a point where, as we're seeing with Izzy now, maybe you beat everyone, you make your legacy, and then all of a sudden, just time catches up with you, or the game just moves past you a little bit. And that doesn't mean that we have to forget about what you've done before. I mean, we can get onto Joanna Jacek a bit later as well, but a similar situation. She was beat by Rose. She was beat by Zhang twice, both of them. But yet I would still consider her my strawweight GOAT because of what she achieved.
Can I just ask though, but I understand that about Aldo and ultimate respect to Aldo, and I think for newer UFC fans, newer MMA fans, because of the way that the Conor fight went, he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, but he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. But I don't understand the criteria of having Jose Aldo, any criteria of having Aldo in there as a striker over Max Holloway. What's the foundation of that?
More title defenses. More title defenses, longer win streak, doing it with his hands and feet.
This is what
it's as simple as that. I've become the stat man. I am the stat man, and the stats are important. I think in this, when you are a champion, it's all right to talk about people that but in other organizations or in other sports they've achieved this. Yeah. For me, that's not relevant to this discussion. To me, I feel like it's what happens at the highest echelons of this sport. And when you're talking about the highest peaks of this sport, you're talking UFC champion, UFC title defenses, or in this case, WEC, because the UFC wasn't allowed for the smaller weight classes back then. So that to me is the pinnacle. You're fighting the best of the best. Everyone is coming up going, I need to beat Jose Aldo. For 9 years, they were all coming up going, I need to beat Jose Aldo. That's what Conor was training for most of his career. And he did it. Yeah. And that to me, to stay at that level and just take out person after person after person means so much.
Let me mediate because we're going to go backwards and forwards. Number one, Aldo's a fantastic champion. We're not rating his abilities as a champion, even with all those defenses. I agree. Number two, I want to say a lot of the guys he beat, Uriah Faber, Mike Brown, incredible guys, mainly wrestlers, not the best strikers. When he did eventually come up with against other strikers, they could do more things than he could. Max Holloway had better cardio, had more volume, and he had more variety in terms of his striking arsenal. Conor McGregor obviously timed him out there, but I do feel like Aldo was phenomenal as a power Muay Thai striker. He didn't fake a lot. He didn't set a lot of traps. Sometimes he was just moving forward with combinations, pocketed really tight control combinations and fantastic defensive head movement, but it's not at the same level as Max Holloway, who was able to bait him, draw out the offense, get him to swing and miss, and wear him out. So to me, it shows that Max Holloway is a better striker than Aldo, and I agree with Kweku.
And also, when you look at like when they fought, I know there was miles on the clock, but it wasn't an old Jose Aldo. It was a Jose Aldo who was 31, 32 years old when he fought against Max Holloway twice and lost twice and got TKO'd twice. And that was Aldo after obviously losing against McGregor, which everybody kind of didn't put down to a fluke, but it was a happening. He beat Frank Edgar, and then he lost Max Holloway twice. So I just don't know how Aldo, as a striker, bear in mind Max Holloway's got the greatest knockout in UFC MMA history. I don't understand how there's any criteria that Jose Aldo goes in there with Max Holloway.
This is going to be tough because we're not going to agree.
I think the miles on the clock thing. I think miles on the clock thing is important. I think you can be 32, but if you've been fighting since you were 19 years old or something like that it takes a toll on your body, and that is your true age is the fight years rather than the years.
Yeah,
I agree with that statement, which is why I think we don't have to look at it like that. We can't look at it who they beat and who they didn't beat. You got to look at Prime Aldo versus Prime Holloway, and I still believe Prime Holloway would beat Aldo based on the stylistic matchup of their striking skill sets. And that's apparently I have the final say. So I don't agree that I'm right. Everyone can have their own opinion.
Yeah.
But I do think if we're going to put a featherweight, I would say Max now above Aldo, which is why I want to bring it back to Volkanovski, lads. Okay. Now, Volkanovski's striking game is absolutely A+. All right. I know he's a wrestler and his cardio and his ground and pound gets it done. But Volkanovski, beyond someone like Aldo, Volk can fight going forwards, can fight going backwards, can fight moving laterally, can bait, set offense, uses fakes to a level Aldo never did. The basic fundamentals of Volk's game is what makes it so good. And I don't believe there's anyone who beat him on the feet until Islam, landed that head kick. I think Volk beat everybody in every striking matchup he had, including Max Holloway 3 times. So I know we just said we can't have opponents, and I contradicted myself, but that's why I picked Volk above Max, above Aldo.
So for me, I think Volk's game is too well-rounded to say best striker. He does utilize other aspects. Like when he fought Yair Rodriguez, he was smashing him up on the ground as well.
True.
He had moments. I mean, obviously he's a better striker than Brian Ortega, but he was also able to do an awful lot of damage from those kind of ground and pound situations.
100%.
And so for me, if we're talking best fighters, Volkanovski is going to be over Max Holloway. But if we're talking best strikers, just strikers, then I would put Max over Volk because he does it purely through the striking.
I see what you're saying. Again,
I would agree.
Any thoughts?
I would agree.
You would agree?
I would agree. I think Volk is an all-round fighter. Again, UFC and MMA sliding doors moments, right? If Volk doesn't take the ill-advised fight against Islam, I think we're talking about one of the greatest fighters, one of the Mount Rushmore fighters, but things happen. But in terms of just pure striking, I don't think Volk can chat to Max Holloway. I don't think many people can chat to Max Holloway when it comes to pure striking. There's a reason why I call himself the best boxer in the UFC, because I think he is there or thereabouts.
I disagree with you boys, but that's okay. I think Volk operates a level striking that is beyond anything we see from a regular fighter. And just by his footwork, movement, defensive capabilities, that alone supersedes anyone I've ever seen at 145. He's better at that than Max. He managed the space better. He managed the timing better. He chose the better shots. He chipped him with leg kicks and stabbed him with the jab. And Max couldn't find timing to really land much. Second fight's a different story, but
yeah, no. Think about the third fight. The third fight, Volk was just doing him on the feet. And in the third fight, Max versus Volk was just outstriking Max, which was crazy to see.
It's tough because there's nothing flashy about it. Go on.
I can't remember what the original question was, but I kind of feel like what we're kind of working towards is there's a slight difference in my head between the best striker and the greatest striker.
Yeah.
Because greatest to me is like, what have you achieved through just the striking? Whereas the best is like, if we're talking just the best, then I probably would have put MVP on my list.
Yeah, or Lorenz Larkin,
because you're looking at a fighter we saw at the weekend just gone against Shara Bullet. Shara Bullet's a weight class above and is a very brilliant striker. MVP is a puzzle that people find very difficult to solve if you're just striking with him.
I almost put MVP on here, I'm not going to lie.
And the thing is, that's the thing is that what's the criteria for me?
Yeah, exactly.
I was leaning more towards, have you achieved greatness through just striking?
Okay.
But if we're putting just two people in a cage and going, your style versus your style, weight class is all equal, and then you can only strike, then you're probably saying Wonder Boy and MVP beat everyone.
You know what, mate? They might.
Yeah.
They literally might. But I don't know if they beat Volkanovski. No, I'm joking.
No, but in terms, I think we should base it on what you're saying though, Blake. In terms of greatness, who's the greatest? Because, like I say, the best. It's difficult, right? The best is so difficult to quantify because some people have had such long careers outside the organization. So you would put an MVP because he is one of the best strikers, but he's only had 2 or 3 fights in the UFC, so it makes it difficult to really judge him. So I think greatness is what we should go off. So are we saying Anderson number 1?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've already gone over time. I don't think we're going to be able to get 5, but let's say Anderson number 1. Boom, 2. I like it.
Okay, number 2.
Are we saying Holloway number 2 then?
I'm not. I'm not putting Holloway. I can't put him in the top 5.
Well, I think numbers will outweigh you. Me and Kweku are saying Holloway then. I'm taking away Aldo and I'll replace him with Holloway for Kweku.
There was someone else in there that we agreed on, isn't it? I mean, do you guys not think like Topuria is better? Because Topuria...
No, he's not been around long enough. He's had one title defense. And he also can do it with the grappling as well. So I don't. I mean, I think a lot of us said Izzy was 3rd.
Yeah,
am I right in saying that?
I'd have Izzy 3rd.
Izzy's, I mean, listen, you can definitely put Israel Adesanya now. I wouldn't argue if you put him in your top 5. You know,
I would actually have Poatan over Izzy, but like we'll put Izzy. I'll put Izzy 3rd. We'll have Izzy
you definitely could put Poatan in there over Izzy as well.
I think it's number 3 just because of the greatness, because of what he achieved, and because people. I know it's the same as Poatan, but people were not afraid of anything apart from Izzy striking, and they knew what they were going to get every time he steps into the octagon, and he was still putting in that work. So, and he did it for a long time, defending his belt for a long time. So I'd have Izzy.
Yeah. All right. I think we finished the last 2 there, but I mean, there's no love for Alistair Overeem from either of you guys. He didn't
achieve enough at the highest level.
Wow, did he won 13 fights in a row?
What, in the UFC?
He was Strikeforce champion. Okay, in the dream. UFC. Still, UFC was very good. I mean, again, for me, greatest compared to ability. I went for ability. You went for achievement. It's completely I think we're good. Let's let chat decide the rest of that. Give us your top 5 in the comments, and we'll see what everyone agrees. Because we're repping Volk out here as well.